There's nothing in this agreement that talks about a mechanism for enforcement on the Israeli side, nor does it talk about repercussions for Israel and consequences if it doesn't abide by the terms of this. It doesn't allow for a dispute resolution mechanism, and there's no reference to international law or the rights of the peoples involved. And so for that reason, it's very problematic because we have an Israeli government that is gone rogue.
Donald Trump says Hamas has 3 to 4 days to respond to his Gaza peace plan, or they'll face what he called a very sad end. The US president's 20-point plan would see an effective end to the war, the return of remaining hostages and the creation of what he called a board of peace to run the enclave. But Trump insisted Israel would be allowed to destroy Hamas if there isn't an agreement.
They can do it pretty easily. I would let them go and do what they have to do. You know, we've killed about 25,000 Hamas. So certainly they paid a big price for October 7th. And this is a whole new group. You know, they come in and they come in and they keep coming. We're going to do about 3 or 4 days. We'll see how it is. All of the Arab countries are signed up. The Muslim countries all signed up. Israel's all signed up. We're just waiting for Hamas. And Hamas is either going to be doing it or not. And if it's not, it's going to be a very sad end.
Well, that's Donald Trump speaking a little earlier today. Zaha Hassan is a human rights lawyer and was an advisor during Palestine's bid for UN membership and during previous peace talks, is now a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Zaha, thank you for being with us. Really appreciate it. I wonder what the reaction is from Palestinian politicians. Is there any understanding as to whether Hamas will accept this US brokered peace deal or not?
Look, I think regardless of who you are, whether you're a Palestinian politician, whether you're Hamas or you're just an average person trying to live in Gaza right now, you want to see this succeed. You want to see a peace plan that will actually be fit for purpose, that can end what's been happening for the last 2 years. But I think it's important for us to take a step back here and remember that what's happening is not really a negotiation. It shouldn't be a negotiation. We have already had the United Nations, a committee of experts, say that what's taking place is a genocide. So Palestinians shouldn't have to negotiate their way out of a genocide. But that's what the world superpower and the Israeli prime minister, who's acting as a hegemon in the region now, is expecting. He's expecting for Palestinians to sign off on a so-called deal that will allow humanitarian aid to be surged only after they accept the deal.
Well, he's expecting Hamas sign off, isn't he? So are you saying that includes, are you grouping Hamas and Palestinians together? Are you saying it should have a sign off by Palestinians?
Well, this war wasn't waged against Hamas only. And according to the UN, it was waged against the Palestinian people. So Palestinians writ large should have a say in what should be the resolution to what's happened.
But who's going to sorry to butt in, Zaha, but who's going to represent the Palestinian people?
Well, the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people is the Palestine Liberation Organization. It's the organization that Israel recognized in 1993, and it's the organization that the entire international community recognizes as the legitimate representative of Palestinians. But you don't hear any mention of the PLO in any of the discussions around ending the genocide in Gaza. You hear even little about the Palestinian Authority, which is the governing body.
But is that because the Palestinian Liberation Organization have no purchase in Gaza? Gaza is still to some degree controlled by Hamas. This is, Hamas who were the elected, albeit in operation for a very long time without any new elections. They were the governing body in Gaza.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And so that's why you need them at the table. But this agreement actually doesn't require Hamas's acceptance in any case. It says in one of the points that if Hamas doesn't agree, Israel will proceed on its own. And as you heard from the president in that clip that you shared, Israel's being given a full license to do whatever it wants to do in the next, hours and days. So this isn't really about Hamas at
Well,
the end of the day.
yeah. I mean, look, I do understand what you're saying. On the other hand, the most important factor to this is that Palestinians and Israelis, to some extent, but a much smaller extent, are losing their lives. How do we bring about peace urgently in Gaza? Do you bring in another negotiation arm, someone like the Palestinian, the PLO, who haven't been involved thus far in any of the negotiations, or do you trust that those Arab partners involved in these talks have the Palestinians' best interest at heart? Bringing in another body or another organisation, a group, a governing body at this stage surely just delays and prolongs the bloodshed. Surely it's about getting an urgent end to this, isn't it?
No, the priority has to be getting to a permanent ceasefire. And to do that, you obviously need the parties that are engaged in fighting to be at the table. And so, yes, absolutely, Hamas has to be involved in this. But that's assuming that, that this is going to end if Hamas says they accept this. We've already seen the Prime Minister Netanyahu, attack the negotiators before on foreign soil in Qatar. We've seen them attack Hamas negotiators in Lebanon or Syria. So it's not that you don't have Hamas at the table, but what we've seen in the past is the Israeli Prime Minister targeting these people, so making it very questionable whether or not he really wants to get to an agreement with them. But putting that aside and assuming that we can get to an agreement now with President Trump, the question is, who's going to enforce all of the terms of this? We know who's going to enforce it on the Palestinian side, because Hamas will have to disarm, and the Palestinians will have to accept this international peacekeeping force, the stabilization force that will ensure that the peace holds from Hamas's side. But who's going to make sure that Israel abides by this? There's nothing in this agreement that talks about a mechanism for enforcement on the Israeli side, nor does it talk about repercussions for Israel and consequences if it doesn't abide by the terms of this. It doesn't allow for a dispute resolution mechanism, and there's no reference to international law or the rights of the peoples involved. And so for that reason, it's very problematic, because we have an Israeli government that is gone rogue, and they have obviously have no concern for international humanitarian law, international human rights law, or UN mechanism.
Okay, so you are not comforted at all by the there's a demarcation, isn't there? There are three lines, and the IDF, the Israeli military, would have a staged withdrawal from the territory. So they wouldn't leave straight away, be various conditions met, and they would have a staged withdrawal from the territory. And actually, eventually, there is a part of this that says that there could be a place after reform for the Palestinian Authority to eventually take over Gaza. Now, whether the Palestinian Authority can reform or not is another question, and that's a longer standing question, because that would mean ultimately, wouldn't it, the unification of Gaza and the West Bank under one rule, which is in all but definition a Palestinian state, something that Israel are very sticky about. But I just wonder whether you're being too obstructive of the process here. You clearly have no faith in Israel. They have signed up to this. There are various Arab leaders involved in this, Arab countries involved with this, and there's an international security force, as you say, who'll be temporary peacekeepers. None of that reassures you at all.
No, because
surely this plan is better than no plan at all.
No. Look, I'm not being pessimistic. I'm being realistic here. Why am I being realistic? Because I actually listen to what the Israeli Prime Minister says. And what he said immediately after he presented this with President Trump is he said Israel's not withdrawing from Gaza, and Israel will never accept a Palestinian state anywhere in in the occupied Palestinian territories. So I'm just listening to what he says, and I'm looking back in time at what he has done to the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords, if you recall, was also a phased withdrawal plan so that there could be a Palestinian state at the end of the day, right? There was never a completion of that phased withdrawal because Benjamin Netanyahu got involved in as a prime minister, and he brags about the fact that he prevented a Palestinian state from ever taking shape because he blocked it at every turn, and he increased settlement construction throughout the West Bank. And now he wants to build settlements in Gaza. So I'm not being pessimistic. I'm unfortunately
Again, we have to take this on face value to a certain extent because the history is so complicated and so spiky. He's not said, and there is no part of this, that he wants to build settlements in Gaza. He has come out before and said he's got no intention of having any rule in Gaza. He would like to hand that over ideally to someone like the Palestinian Authority after international security.
He never accepted Palestinian authority.
That is part of the deal, is it not? The deal, it paints a broad path towards peace. It indicates, perhaps this is too early, I don't know, the eventual takeover of Gaza by the Palestinian Authority if the Palestinian Authority agrees to reforms. Jumping ahead and saying, well, actually, the Israeli Prime Minister wants to build settlements in Gaza. It doesn't help this cause, does it? It just obstructs. And so,
well, let me explain to you why it's built into the agreement. Because you said it yourself that the Palestinian Authority will have a role if they get to certain reforms. And there's a reference to the Trump 2020 peace plan. What does the Trump 2020 peace plan say? It says that there will be certain benchmarks that the Palestinian Authority has to meet that are completely within Israel's discretion to determine whether they've met those benchmarks. And one of the things the Palestinians have to do is they have to end their legal claims against Israel at the ICC and at the International Court of Justice. So that's the kind of reform Israel's looking for. They're looking for a Palestinian Authority that's willing to accept to live in enclaves in the West Bank and prove to them that they will submit to that reality, which is an apartheid reality, according to the International Court of Justice in 2024.
Okay. Zaha, we have to leave it there for time, but thank you for putting those points across. It is really important context, actually, when we get excited about possibly something happening in Gaza. Zaha Hassan there, who's a human rights lawyer and advisor during Palestine's bid for UN membership and during previous peace talks, now a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Thank you for being with us.